Denise was cleaning tables when she saw her. A little white girl, maybe 5, standing alone outside the diner, crying. No parents in sight. She ran out. "Honey, where's your mommy?" The girl didn't respond. She just made strange movements with her hands. Sign language. Denise's heart broke. Her own mother had been deaf. "It's okay, sweetheart," Denise signed. "I understand you." The girl's eyes lit up. An hour later, a Rolls-Royce screeched to a halt. A man in a $10,000 suit ran in. "Emma!" He scooped up his daughter, then stared at Denise. You can communicate with her?" His voice cracked. "I've been looking for someone who could understand her for years." But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The bell above the door of Lou's diner jingled for what felt like the 100th time that day, but it was always the same sound. "Coffee, please, Denise. Black as my soul on a Monday." Denise Miller smiled at the old man in booth 3. "Coming right up, Frank." Her voice was soft, almost lost in the clatter of plates from the kitchen. She filled his mug, the steam warming her face for a second. This was her life. 5 days a week, sometimes 6. The same red vinyl booths, the same smell of grease and coffee, the same customers with the same orders. It was a quiet life, a safe life, a lonely life. 2 years had passed since her mother died. The silence in her small apartment was different now. It was an empty silence, not the warm, understanding quiet she had grown up with. Her mother, Clara, had been deaf. Their whole world had been built on hands moving in the light, on expressions, on touch. Denise used that language less and less now. There was no one to use it with. Her hands, which used to dance with stories for her mom, now mostly carried plates of eggs and pots of coffee. She wiped the counter and looked out the big window. It was a cold, wet Tuesday afternoon in Chicago. The rain wasn't storming. It was the kind of rain that just decided to be there forever, soaking everything in a dull gray light. People hurried past under umbrellas, their heads down. Then she saw the girl. A small figure, no taller than a fire hydrant, stood on the sidewalk across the street. She was soaked. Her pink jacket was dark with water, her blonde hair plastered to her head. She wasn't moving. She was just standing there, and her small shoulders were shaking. Denise stopped wiping. She watched. A woman in a trench coat walked briskly past the girl, glancing down but not breaking stride. A man with a briefcase followed a moment later, stepping around her as if she were a puddle. The little girl's face was turned toward the diner window, but Denise couldn't see her eyes from this distance. She could only see the shaking. She could see the silent, open mouth of a cry. Something pulled tight in Denise's chest. It was a familiar feeling, an old reflex from caring for her mother. A need to help, to soothe. "Lou, I'm taking 5, she called toward the kitchen pass-through. "Don't take 10, a grumpy voice shouted back. Denise didn't grab her coat. She just pushed through the diner door and ran out into the rain. The cold hit her instantly, seeping through her waitress uniform. She dodged a car and reached the other side of the street. She knelt down right there in a shallow puddle, the water soaking through the knees of her pants. She was now face to face with the little girl. "Hey," Denise said, her voice gentle. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl flinched. She stared at Denise with huge, terrified blue eyes. Fat tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She shook her head wildly, but she didn't speak. She didn't make a sound. Denise tried again. "It's okay. I want to help. Can you tell me your name?" The girl's chin trembled. She took a step back, fear clouding her face. Denise's mind raced. She was scaring her. The thought of this small, terrified, soaking wet child was a physical ache. And then, from a deep, unused place inside her, an instinct rose. It was her mother's voice in her hands. Slowly, so as not to startle her, Denise lifted her own hands. She formed the signs, her movements deliberate and clear, despite her cold, stiff fingers. Asterisk. Are you okay? Are you lost? The effect was instant. The little girl's crying stopped, just like that. The panicked shaking stilled. Her wide, wet eyes locked onto Denise's moving hands. The fear melted into shock, then into a desperate, hopeful recognition. It was the look of someone who had been shouting into a void and had finally been seen. The girl's small hands came up. They were clumsy with cold, but the signs were clear. Asterisk. I can't find my dad. A jolt went through Denise, warm and electric, cutting through the chill of the rain. She signed back, Asterisk. What is your name? Emma Asterisk, the girl signed. Asterisk. My name is Denise. Come with me. We will get warm and find your dad. Denise held out her hand, not to grab, but to offer. Emma stared at it for a second. Then her tiny, ice-cold fingers slipped into Denise's palm. Denise led her back across the street, into the warm, bright noise of the diner. Every eye in the place turned to them. Frank in booth 3 paused, his coffee mug halfway to his mouth. Lou's grizzled face appeared at the pass-through, eyebrows raised. Everything all right, Denise? He asked. She's lost, Denise said, guiding Emma to a booth away from the draft of the door. She's cold. I'm going to call the police. She helped Emma out of the dripping pink jacket. The little girl's shirt underneath was damp. Denise grabbed a clean dish towel from a stack. Here, she said softly, and then signed, Asterisk, dry your hair. Emma took the towel and clumsily tried to rub her head. Denise slid into the booth opposite her. Lou, can I get a hot chocolate? For here. Coming up, Lou said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. Denise pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She gave the dispatcher the address, described Emma, her clothes, her age. She's deaf, Denise added, her eyes on the girl. She communicates with sign language. While they waited, Denise focused on Emma. The girl was looking around the diner, her eyes big. She was no longer crying, but she looked small and scared. Asterisk. Are you hungry? Denise signed. Emma shook her head no. Lou arrived with a large mug of hot chocolate, topped with a mountain of whipped cream. He set it down carefully in front of Emma. On the house, he muttered, and walked away. Denise guided Emma's hands to wrap around the warm mug. Asterisk, careful, hot. Emma blew on it, a habit she must have learned from drinking hot things before. She took a sip, and a tiny bit of whipped cream stayed on her nose. For the first time, the ghost of a smile touched her lips. Denise reached over and gently wiped the cream away with her thumb. Asterisk. Thank you, Asterisk. Emma signed with one hand. Asterisk. You are welcome, Asterisk. Denise signed back. And just like that, they were talking. Denise asked simple questions. Asterisk. How old are you? 5. Asterisk. What is your dad's name? Daddy. Asterisk. Do you know where you were going? Emma's face scrunched in thought. She signed, Asterisk, big building. Lots of windows. As Denise's hands moved, a powerful feeling washed over her. It wasn't just the act of signing. It was the connection. She was looking into the bright, intelligent eyes of a child who understood her perfectly. Emma's small hands responded, telling a story of confusion and fear. It was a conversation. A real, quiet conversation in the middle of the noisy diner. Denise hadn't had a conversation like this in 2 years. Since her mother died, her hands had felt useless. Now, they felt like they had a purpose again. They were a bridge. They were comfort. She felt a lump form in her throat. She missed her mom with a sudden sharp pain. But for the first time, the memory didn't just bring sadness. It brought this. It brought the ability to help this little girl. The police arrived first. 2 officers, a man and a woman, came in, shedding rain from their coats. Denise explained what happened. The female officer, Officer Perez, tried to talk to Emma, but Emma shrunk back against the booth, her eyes on Denise. "It's okay," Denise signed to her. Asterisk. "They are police. They will help find your dad." She interpreted the officer's simple questions, her hands moving smoothly between them. They were checking their records for missing child reports when the door of the diner burst open. A man stumbled in. He was dressed in a suit that looked like it cost more than everything in the diner, but it was wrinkled now. His tie was loose. His hair was disheveled from the rain and from running. His face was pale, etched with a panic so deep it seemed to crack him open. His frantic eyes swept the room, past the police, past the customers, and landed on the booth. On Emma. The air rushed out of him in a visible shudder. Then his gaze shot to the person sitting with his daughter, to the young waitress with the kind eyes and the moving hands. His look held a torrent of emotions, immense relief, crushing guilt, and a desperate, unspoken question. The man in the expensive rumpled suit did not move for a second. He just stared, his chest rising and falling fast. Then he rushed forward, sliding into the booth and pulling the little girl into his arms. "Emma! Oh, thank God! Emma, I'm here!" His voice cracked. He held her tight, rocking slightly. He pulled back, his hands on her small shoulders, checking her face, her arms. "Are you hurt? Are you okay?" Emma nodded, but her eyes were on Denise. She signed, "Asterisk, my dad is here." The man followed her gaze. He looked at Denise, really looked at her, seeing her wet waitress uniform, her kind face. "You found her?" "She was across the street," Denise said softly. "She was alone and crying." Officer Perez stepped closer. "Sir, are you Robert Carter?" Yes, I'm her father." He fumbled for his wallet, pulling out an ID. His hands were shaking. "We'll need to confirm a few details for our report, Mr. Carter. We got a call about a missing child from the Windsor Hotel about an hour ago. Said she was last seen with a nanny." Robert closed his eyes, a pained expression on his face. "I was in a meeting. The nanny, she said she was taking Emma to the bathroom. She must have wandered. The woman was new. She didn't know. She didn't understand. Emma can't hear her call her name." He opened his eyes, looking at Denise again. "You brought her in here, out of the rain?" Denise nodded. "I saw her. No one was stopping. I had to." Robert Carter let out a long, slow breath. He turned back to the police officer. "Can I take her home now? She's cold. She needs dry clothes." After a few more questions and some paperwork, the police officers left, satisfied. The diner returned to its low hum of conversation, though Frank and the others were still watching the scene in the booth with great interest. Robert kept one arm around Emma. He looked at the half-finished hot chocolate, the dish towel. "You gave her this?" "She was freezing," Denise said. "Thank you." The words were heavy, full of real feeling. "Thank you so much. You have no idea." "The fear?" He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Emma tapped his arm. He looked down. She signed, "Asterisk, hot chocolate is good." Robert stared at her moving hands, then at her bright, engaged face. He saw no trace of the panic or the blank sadness he had grown used to seeing. He looked at Denise, confusion and awe in his eyes. "You can sign with her." "Yes," Denise said. "And she talks to you. She's calm." Denise smiled at Emma. "Asterisk. Your dad was very worried. Emma nodded solemnly. Asterisk, I got lost. Robert watched this silent exchange. He saw the way his daughter's eyes stayed locked on Denise's hands, the way she responded easily. It was like watching a door open that he hadn't even known was closed. She lost her hearing when she was 2, Robert said, his voice low. It was after an illness. Her mother. It was very hard for everyone. Her mother left not long after. He said it plainly, a simple fact that held immense pain. I have tried. I have hired so many people, specialists, nannies who said they knew sign language, but it was never right. Emma would get frustrated. She would have fits of anger. She wouldn't connect with them. He looked at his daughter, who was now carefully eating the whipped cream with a spoon. She has become so quiet, so sad, until right now. He paused, his mind working fast. This was how he solved problems in his business. He saw a need and found a solution. Here, in a Chicago diner, he was seeing a solution he had been searching for across 2 continents. Emma, he said. She looked up. He spoke slowly, trying to make his lips easy to read. Are you warm now? She nodded. Then she signed to Denise. Asterisk, can we go? Denise interpreted. She's asking if you can go now. Robert's face fell, just a little. He was talking to his daughter, but the answer came through someone else. It was a sharp reminder of the wall between them. He was talking asterisk about asterisk her, not asterisk with asterisk her. Emma's small face clouded. She didn't like it either. She made a sound of frustration, a grunt from deep in her throat, and pushed the hot chocolate mug away. It was a small gesture, but it was full of years of not being understood. Denise acted without thinking. She reached out and put her hand gently over Emma's. She didn't speak. She just signed, asterisk. Your dad asked if you are warm. He wants to know if you are ready to leave. You can tell him. Emma looked from Denise's hands to her father's face. The frustration faded. She signed clearly, asterisk, I am warm. I want to go home. Robert had seen the signs for warm and home. He understood. A wave of relief washed over him. Okay, he said, his voice thick. Okay, we can go home. But he didn't move. He was looking at Denise with a new intensity. Where did you learn to sign like that? My mother was deaf, Denise said. It was our first language. And you work here? I'm a waitress, Denise said, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. She felt the familiar pang of being just a waitress. Robert Carter made a decision. It was the biggest, most impulsive decision of his life, but in that moment, it felt like the only logical one. I want to offer you a job, he said. Denise blinked. A job? A new job? With me? With us? In New York? The words tumbled out. I live in New York. Emma needs someone. She needs someone like you. Someone who can talk to her, really talk to her, not just watch her. You would be her companion, her tutor. You would live with us. You would help her, teach her, be her friend. He named a yearly salary. It was a number so large Denise felt the room tilt. She shook her head, her heart pounding. No, I can't. I don't know anything about New York. I've never even been on a plane. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a nanny. I'm a waitress. The words were her armor, her familiar truth. You are the only person in 2 years who has made my daughter look like that, Robert said, pointing to Emma. Emma was watching them, following the conversation as best she could. Look at her. She trusts you. After 1 hour, she trusts you. That is what she needs. Not another degree. Not another stranger who knows a few signs. She needs someone who understands her world. Denise looked at Emma. The little girl's blue eyes were fixed on her, wide and hopeful. "Please come with us," Robert said, and his voice was no longer that of a powerful billionaire. It was the voice of a tired, desperate father. "I can give you a good life, a better life. You can have your own room in our home. You can have anything you need. Please, help me help her." Emma tugged on Denise's sleeve. Denise looked down. Emma signed, her movements small and pleading. Asterisk, please, asterisk. That one sign broke her. It broke through all the fear, all the doubt. She saw her mother's face in her mind. She thought of her quiet apartment, the lonely routine of the diner, the feeling of being stuck. She thought of the purpose she had felt just moments ago, talking with her hands. That feeling had been missing for 2 long years. She was scared, terrified. New York was a giant, noisy story in her mind. This man's world was made of glass and money, things she did not understand. But this little girl needed her. And for the first time since her mother died, Denise Miller felt needed in a way that mattered. She took a deep, shaking breath. She looked at Robert Carter. "Okay," she whispered. Then she said it again, stronger. "Okay, I will do it." Robert's shoulders slumped in relief. "Thank you. You will not regret this." The next 2 days were a blur. She gave her notice to Lou, who grumbled but hugged her tight. "You take care of that kid, you hear?" She packed one small suitcase of her most comfortable clothes. She stood in the middle of her empty apartment, said a silent goodbye, and locked the door. Now, she sat on a plane for the first time in her life, her hands gripping the armrests as the engines roared. Emma was asleep in the window seat next to her, her head leaning against Denise's arm. Robert sat across the aisle, typing on his laptop. Denise looked out the window as the plane began its descent. The city appeared below, endless and terrifyingly bright, even in the afternoon light. Buildings stood like sharp mountains against the sky. Millions of lights twinkled, a vast galaxy on the ground. The plane touched down with a bump and a roar. They taxied to the gate. Robert put away his laptop and looked over at them. "Welcome to New York," he said. Emma woke up, rubbing her eyes. She looked out the window, and her mouth formed a little O of wonder. Denise tried to smile. She gathered her one small bag. She followed Robert and Emma off the plane into the busy, echoing terminal. People rushed everywhere, talking on phones, shouting greetings. The noise was a physical force. As they walked toward the exit where a black car waited for them, Denise looked up at the high ceilings and the rushing crowds. A deep, trembling doubt settled in her stomach. This world was made for people who knew how to shout, how to push, how to be seen. She held Emma's hand a little tighter. She wondered, with a fear that tasted like metal in her mouth, if a person who spoke in silence would ever be heard here. The black car slid through streets that felt more like canyons. Denise watched buildings that touched the clouds pass by her window. Emma, excited, signed the names of colors she saw in the signs and lights. Robert sat quietly, checking his phone. The car stopped under a tall, sleek building. A man in a uniform opened the car door. "Good evening, Mr. Carter." "Evening, George." Denise got out, holding her one suitcase. The lobby was not a lobby. It was a huge, silent room with floors that shone like dark ice. There were no chairs, just a single desk where another man nodded at Robert. The air smelled like flowers and clean glass. No one made a sound. They went up in an elevator that was all mirrors and soft light. It didn't feel like it was moving. Then the doors opened directly into a room. Denise stepped out and stopped. She had never seen a room so big that was inside someone's home. The walls were white. The floor was pale wood. One entire wall was glass. showing the glittering city far below. There were a few pieces of furniture, all low and simple, like art. There were no pictures on the walls, no clutter on the tables. It was beautiful. It was the coldest place Denise had ever been. "This is the main living area," Robert said, his voice echoing a little. "The kitchen is through there. Emma's room and yours are down that hall." A woman appeared from another doorway. She was older, maybe 60, but looked timeless. Her silver hair was perfect. She wore a dress the color of cream. She moved without a sound. "Mother," Robert said, "I didn't expect you tonight. I wanted to meet the young woman who caused such an abrupt change in plans," the woman said. Her eyes, a cool blue, settled on Denise. They traveled from Denise's simple sneakers, up her jeans, to her worn sweater. The woman did not smile. "Denise, this is my mother, Eleanor Carter. Mother, this is Denise Miller, Emma's new companion." Eleanor offered a hand. Her grip was light and quick. "Companion, a novel title. We usually say nanny or tutor. But I suppose companion covers it." Her smile was thin. "Robert tells me you have a knack with Emma." "We use sign language," Denise said, feeling her face grow warm. "Yes, sign language." Eleanor said the words as if they were a strange dish she was unsure of. "We have had many people try that. Specialists from very good schools. It never seemed to stick with Emma. She is a difficult child." From beside Denise, Emma signed, sharp and clear, "I am not difficult." Eleanor did not see it. She was looking at Robert. "I hope you know what you're doing. This is a very unconventional hire for a very sensitive situation." "I know exactly what I'm doing, Mother," Robert said, but his voice was tired. "Denise, let me show you to your room. You must be exhausted." He led her down a hall. Emma followed, staying close to Denise. The room he showed her was bigger than her whole Chicago apartment. A large bed with white sheets. Another huge window. A closet, empty except for a few fluffy robes. A bathroom with towels so thick they looked like snow. "Your bathroom is through there," Robert said. "Emma's room is right next door. Mine is at the end of the hall. If you need anything, just press the intercom by the door. Mrs. Lawson, the housekeeper, comes in the mornings." Denise just nodded, unable to speak. This was not a bedroom. It was a hotel room in a movie. "Get some rest," Robert said. "We'll start fresh tomorrow." He looked down at Emma. "Time for bed, sweetheart." Emma signed, "Denise too?" "Denise needs to sleep in her own room," Robert said, slowly forming the words. Emma's face fell. She looked at Denise, her eyes worried. Denise knelt. "I am right next door. See?" She pointed to the connecting wall. "If you need me, you can knock. Good night, Emma." Reluctantly, Emma let her father lead her away. Alone, Denise sat on the edge of the giant bed. It was softer than any cloud. She opened her suitcase. Her few jeans and sweaters looked sad and out of place in the vast white closet. She felt like a stain on the perfect carpet. The next morning, the sun woke her by blazing through the enormous window. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered. New York? The penthouse. She dressed in her own clothes and walked quietly to the kitchen. It was all steel and marble. A woman in a crisp gray dress was making coffee. "You must be Denise," the woman said. She did not smile, but she wasn't unfriendly. "I'm Mrs. Lawson. Mr. Carter said you might be up. Would you like breakfast? Emma usually has oatmeal and fruit at 8 o'clock. "I can make it," Denise said. "That's not necessary, Mrs. Lawson said. "It's my job." "I'd like to," Denise insisted. She needed something to do with her hands. At 8 o'clock, she carried a bowl of oatmeal to the dining table. a long, cold slab of glass. Emma was already there, dressed in a pretty stiff dress. She looked unhappy. Denise sat with her. Asterisk. Good morning. Did you sleep? Emma shrugged. She poked her oatmeal. Asterisk. Today we can do lessons. Denise signed. Asterisk. We can learn new signs. We can read a book. Emma shook her head. She got up and walked over to a shelf with neat, expensive-looking toys. She took a stack of wooden blocks and carried them to the table. Then, with one sweep of her arm, she knocked them all onto the floor. The clatter was loud in the quiet room. She stared at Denise, a challenge in her eyes. This was the behavior Robert had talked about. The anger. Denise did not raise her voice, and she did not look angry. She took a deep breath. She walked over and knelt by the scattered blocks. She looked up at Emma. Asterisk. I see you are upset, Denise signed, her movements calm and clear. Asterisk. That is okay. You can be upset. We do not have to do lessons right now. Emma's defiant posture wavered. Asterisk. What would you like to do? Denise asked. Emma thought for a moment. She signed asterisk cook. Asterisk Denise smiled. Asterisk. Okay, we can cook. They went to the huge, clean kitchen. Mrs. Lawson raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Denise found flour, sugar, eggs, and chocolate chips. She gave Emma a bowl. Asterisk. This is flour, Denise signed, letting the white powder run through her fingers. Emma copied the sign. They did the same for asterisk egg asterisk, asterisk sugar asterisk, asterisk mix asterisk. Emma's focus was complete. Her small hands stirred the dough with serious intensity. Flour got on the counter, on the floor, on Emma's nice dress. Chocolate chips were dropped and picked up. They were both laughing, their hands covered in sticky dough, when a voice broke the moment. What is happening in here? Robert stood in the doorway. He was dressed for work. He looked at the messy counter, the flour on the floor, the smudge of chocolate on Emma's cheek. He sighed. It was a long, tired sound. Mrs. Lawson just cleaned in here. The laughter died in Denise's throat. We were learning. We were signing the words for ingredients. Robert looked at Emma, who was now hiding her sticky hands behind her back. I see. Well, I have to go. I'll be late tonight. There's a dinner. He walked over and kissed the top of Emma's head. Have a good day, okay? He spoke the words slowly to her face. Emma just looked down. He gave Denise a small, strained smile and left. The silence he left behind felt heavier than before. Denise cleaned up the kitchen with Mrs. Lawson's help. She gave Emma a bath and changed her out of the flour-dusted dress. That afternoon, while Emma played quietly, Denise felt a deep loneliness. She walked to the phone in the kitchen. She called the only number she knew by heart. After 3 rings, a familiar, grumpy voice answered. Lou's Diner. Lou, it's Denise. Denise! Kid, how's the big city? You living in a castle yet? She could hear the clatter of plates and the hiss of the grill in the background. It was the most wonderful sound she had ever heard. It's very big, Denise said, her voice cracking. She closed her eyes, picturing the red booths, the smell of coffee. You sound like you lost your best friend. How's the little girl? She's good. We made cookies today. That's the stuff. Listen, don't you let those fancy people scare you. You got a good heart. That's worth more than all their money. You hear me? I hear you, Lou. She could feel tears pressing behind her eyes. I should go. You call anytime. Booth 3 asks about you every day. She hung up. The silent, shiny kitchen pressed in on her. Later, a young woman with a friendly smile came to the door. She had a bag with toys and books. Hi, you must be Denise. I'm Claire. I used to help out with Emma sometimes. Eleanor, Mrs. Carter, thought I could come by and maybe lend a hand. Show you the ropes." Claire was sweet. She played with Emma, but she talked to her in a loud, slow voice, not using her hands. Emma ignored her. When Claire tried to get Emma to put away her toys, Emma had another small outburst, throwing a stuffed animal. Claire just shook her head and gave Denise a sympathetic look. "She can be such a handful. It's so hard when they can't communicate." "She can communicate," Denise said quietly. "You just have to use her language." Claire's smile didn't change, but her eyes did. "Of course. Well, I'm sure you're trying your best." She left soon after. That evening, as Denise wiped the last of the flour from the morning off the counter, she heard voices from the living room. Robert was home early. Eleanor Carter's voice was there too, crisp and clear. "I had Claire stop by today. She said the child was throwing things again. The kitchen was a disaster this morning. This is not a home, Robert. It is a laboratory for an experiment." Eleanor's voice was like ice. "And this experiment is not working." The words from the living room hung in the air of the kitchen. Asterisk. "This experiment is not working." Denise froze, the damp cloth in her hand. She heard Robert's response, low and strained, but she couldn't make out the words. A few moments later, the sharp click of Eleanor Carter's heels moved toward the foyer, followed by the quiet sigh of the elevator doors. The apartment was silent again, a heavy, watchful silence. The next morning, Eleanor returned. She was not alone. A tall woman with a severe bun and glasses stood beside her. "Denise," Eleanor said, her voice smooth. "This is Dr. Evans. She is a child psychologist with a specialty in developmental challenges. She's here to observe Emma's routine, to see how she's progressing. Denise felt her stomach tighten. Emma, who had been playing with puzzles on the floor, looked up and saw the strangers. She immediately scrambled to her feet and hid behind Denise's legs, peeking out at the doctor. "Hello, Emma," Dr. Evans said, her voice loud and overly bright. She bent down. "My name is Dr. Evans. Can you say hello?" Emma buried her face in Denise's jeans. "She is deaf," Denise said, trying to keep her voice even. "She communicates with sign language." "Yes, of course," Dr. Evans said, straightening up. She pulled out a notepad. "And you are her tutor?" "Her companion," Eleanor supplied, the word sounding strange on her tongue. The observation was agonizing. Dr. Evans followed them from room to room, writing things down. When Denise tried to start a lesson, signing a storybook to Emma, the little girl was too nervous to focus. She just stared at the doctor. When Denise suggested playing a game, Emma shook her head and clung to her. "She seems quite attached to you," Dr. Evans noted. "She trusts me," Denise said. "And prone to avoidance when stressed," the doctor said, writing again. After an hour, they left. Emma let out a huge, soundless sigh of relief the moment the elevator doors closed. She signed, "I did not like her." "I know," Denise signed back. "It's over now." But it wasn't over. A few days later, Robert asked Denise to come into his home office. He was sitting behind a large, empty desk. He looked tired. "Please, close the door," he said. Denise did, her heart beginning to race. "Claire was here yesterday," Robert began. He didn't look at her. He looked at a pen on his desk. "She mentioned something to me. She said she saw you the other day with Emma. She said she saw you grab Emma's arm. Hard. She said Emma looked frightened." Denise felt the blood drain from her face. "What? No, that never happened. Claire said it was when Emma was having one of her moments, when she threw her toy." Denise remembered the day. Claire had been visiting, and Emma had thrown her stuffed bear after Claire tried to take it. Denise had calmly walked over, knelt, and placed a gentle hand on Emma's arm to get her attention. That was all. I put my hand on her arm to help her focus, Denise said, her voice trembling. I did not grab her. I would never hurt her. You can ask Emma. Emma is 5 years old, Robert said, finally looking at her. His eyes were full of a worried confusion, not anger. And she cannot hear. It becomes a matter of, he said, she said, or rather, she said, she said. My mother is already concerned. If there are rumors or appearances, the word asterisk appearances. Asterisk felt like a slap. So you believe her? Denise asked, tears of frustration stinging her eyes. I don't know what to believe, Robert said, running a hand through his hair. I believe you care for Emma. That is obvious. But this situation, it is delicate. You must be extra careful. Every move you make is being watched. Do you understand? Denise understood perfectly. She was an outsider. Her actions were always going to be seen through the worst lens. She nodded, unable to speak, and left the room. That night, she was jolted awake by a small body scrambling into her bed. Emma was crying, her small frame shaking with silent sobs. She had had a nightmare. Denise didn't hesitate, and she opened her arms, and Emma crawled into them. She held her close, rocking her gently. She didn't use words. She just held her until the shaking stopped. Then, in the dim light from the city, she began to sign a story. A simple story about a brave little girl and a friendly dog in a park. She signed it slowly, her hands painting pictures in the air. Emma watched, her breathing calming. She lifted her own hands. Asterisk. Again, asterisk, she signed. Denise told the story again. By the time she finished, Emma was asleep, curled against her. Denise didn't move her. She stayed awake, guarding the child's sleep, feeling more alone in this huge apartment than she ever had in her quiet Chicago life. The next afternoon, Denise brought a small photo album to the playroom. She sat with Emma. Asterisk, this is my mother, she signed, pointing to a picture of a woman with kind eyes and smiling hands. Asterisk, her name was Clara. She was deaf, like you. She taught me this language. Emma studied the picture carefully. She pointed to a photo of a young Denise on her mother's lap, both of them signing. Asterisk, she was my best friend, Denise signed. Emma thought for a moment. Then she slid off the couch and ran to her room. She came back with a worn, one-eared stuffed rabbit. She held it out to Denise. Asterisk, this is Bird, Emma signed. Asterisk, hello, Bird. Denise signed to the rabbit, shaking its paw. Emma smiled, a real wide smile that lit up her whole face. Robert, passing by the doorway on his way to his study, stopped. He watched them. He saw his daughter's smile. He saw the easy flow of their silent conversation. A deep, painful loneliness crossed his own face. He turned and walked away without a sound. Later, Denise saw the sign language book on his desk. It was open. Next to it, on a notepad, he had written the same phrase over and over. I love you. The signs were drawn clumsily in pen. He had tried to practice, but the book was now shoved to the side, half hidden under a financial report. A week later, Eleanor made an announcement during one of her visits. Robert, I have finalized the plans for Emma's birthday party. It's next Saturday. I've booked the Silver Room at the Plaza. The guest list includes the Wallaces, the Prestons, and of course, the governor's wife said she would try to attend. It will be lovely. Emma, sitting at the table coloring, did not understand the words, but she felt the tension. She looked at Denise. Robert rubbed his temples. Mother, that's very generous, but do we need something so large? She's turning 6. Nonsense. It's a celebration. It's what we do. Eleanor's tone left no room for argument. Denise's heart sank. She gathered her courage. "Eleanor," she said softly, with respect. Large parties are very hard for Emma. Lots of people talking, loud noises she can feel. It overwhelms her. A small party here, with just a few friends, would be much better for her. Eleanor turned her cool gaze on Denise. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That is a very sweet, simple idea, dear. But this is not just a party for a child. It is an event. The Carters do things a certain way." She looked back at Robert. "The invitations have already been sent." After Eleanor left, Denise looked at the printed guest list left on the counter. There were 50 names. She thought of the noise, the crowd, the staring. She thought of Emma's fearful reaction to just one visiting doctor. This was not a celebration for Emma. It was a performance for Eleanor. And as Denise looked at the long list of strangers' names, a cold certainty settled in her stomach. This would not go well. The day of the party arrived. The quiet, cold penthouse was transformed. Large flower arrangements stood in every corner. Silver and blue balloons were tied to chairs. A towering cake with 6 layers sat on a table. A big sign said, "Happy Birthday, Emma," in swirling letters. It was beautiful, and to Denise it felt like a stage set for a play nobody wanted to be in. Eleanor was everywhere, directing staff in a firm voice. "Put those orchids over there. No, not there. Asterisk there, asterisk." Emma was dressed in a stiff, lace-trimmed dress. She fidgeted as Denise tried to fix her hair. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with anxiety. "Asterisk, too many people," Emma signed, her hands small and quick. "Asterisk, I will be with you the whole time," Denise promised. "Asterisk, I will tell you what people say. If you want to leave, you tell me." But Denise knew leaving was not an option. Eleanor had made that clear. The guests began to arrive. Women in sleek dresses, men in dark suits. Their voices filled the room, a low rumble that grew louder and louder. The sound vibrated through the floor. Emma flinched with each new burst of laughter, each clink of a glass. Denise stayed by her side, a fixed smile on her face. When a woman bent down and spoke slowly at Emma, Denise translated, "Asterisk, she says you look very pretty." Emma did not smile. She stared at the woman's moving mouth. When a man patted Emma on the head, she ducked away, hiding behind Denise. Robert moved through the crowd, shaking hands, smiling his business smile. He glanced over at Emma and Denise often, his own smile looking tight. A group of men stood near them, talking about stocks. One of them told a joke. The others laughed, a sudden booming sound that seemed to shake the air. Emma gasped. She clapped her hands over her ears, though she could not hear the noise. She could feel it. The violent vibration of so many people laughing at once was too much. Her face crumpled. Silent tears began to stream down her cheeks. "Emma, sweetheart, what's wrong?" a woman asked, leaning in closer. The closeness, the staring eyes, the overwhelming pressure was the final straw. Emma's eyes darted around, wild and terrified. She saw a small side table next to her with a plate of fancy snacks. In a flash of pure frustration, she swiped her arm across it. The plate flew off the table and shattered on the floor with a tremendous crash. The room fell silent. Every single person stopped talking. All eyes turned to the crying little girl, the shattered china, and the young woman kneeling beside her. Eleanor's face was a mask of icy fury. She marched across the room, her heels clicking on the floor. She went straight to Robert, who was frozen in place, his face white. "This," Eleanor said in a sharp, low whisper that carried in the quiet room, "this is exactly what I warned you about. She needs professional help, Robert, not a waitress from a diner." Robert's eyes were locked on the judging stares of his colleagues, his mother's friends, the important people. He saw their pity, their disapproval. The embarrassment burned through him, hot and shameful. All the stress, the doubts, his mother's constant warnings crashed down on him at once. He didn't look at Emma. He looked at Denise. His voice, when it came out, was not a whisper. It was loud and strained, full of a frustration that was meant for himself, but was aimed at her. "Can you control her or not?" he demanded. The words hit Denise like a physical blow. She felt the eyes of the room on her. She saw the hurt and confusion on Emma's wet face. In that moment, everything became very clear. Her fear, her loneliness in this big city, her doubt, it all vanished. There was only Emma. She turned her back on Robert. She turned her back on the entire party. She knelt in front of Emma, blocking the staring faces from her view. She did not speak. She lifted her hands and signed, her movements calm and sure. Asterisk. Do you want to leave? Emma's head nodded up and down, fast and desperate. Okay, Denise said softly, aloud. She stood up. She took Emma's small, trembling hand in her own. She did not look at anyone. She walked. She walked past the pieces of the broken plate. She walked through the crowd of silent, well-dressed people. She walked past Eleanor, whose mouth was a thin, tight line. She walked past Robert, who stood utterly still, his own words echoing in his ears. She opened the heavy front door. She and Emma stepped into the private elevator hall. The door closed behind them, cutting off the silent party. Inside the penthouse, no one moved. Robert stared at the closed door. He looked at the empty spot where Denise and Emma had just been. He heard his mother's voice, cold and final. He saw the faces of his guests, already shifting from shock to awkward pity. He had been worried about appearances. Now, the only thing he could see was the terrified look in his daughter's eyes right before he spoke. The look that said she was alone in a room full of people, and he had blamed the one person who was trying to reach her. The silence in the room was no longer just awkward. To Robert, it felt like a judgment, and for the first time, he knew the judgment was right. The cool air of the elevator car felt like freedom after the hot, crowded room. Emma's hand was tight in Denise's. They rode down to the lobby in silence. The man at the desk looked up, surprised to see them leaving alone, but said nothing. Outside, the city noise was different. It was the noise of traffic and strangers, not the quiet, judging noise of the party. Denise started walking, not sure where to go. She just knew they needed to get away. After a few blocks, she saw the entrance to Central Park. She led Emma through the gates. The green space opened up before them. The sounds of the city softened. Denise found a quiet bench under a large tree. She sat down and pulled Emma onto her lap. The little girl buried her face in Denise's sweater, her small body still shaking with silent sobs. Denise didn't try to make her talk. She just held her. She rubbed slow circles on her back. She waited. After a long time, Emma's breathing began to slow. She lifted her head. Her face was blotchy and her eyes were red. Denise looked into her eyes. She raised her hands. Asterisk. You are safe now. No one is shouting. No one is staring. It is just us and the trees. Emma's lower lip trembled. She signed. Asterisk. I broke the plate. It was an accident. You were scared. The plate does not matter. Is Dad mad? Denise thought of Robert's face, his sharp words. She chose her signs carefully. Asterisk. He was surprised. The party was loud and big. It was too much. It was not your fault. Emma looked down at her hands. Then she signed, her movements small and sad. Asterisk. I hate it there. I just want you and Dad. The simple truth of it broke Denise's heart. She pulled Emma close again. Asterisk. I know, and we will figure this out. I promise. Back in the penthouse, the party was a ruined, awkward mess. Guests were leaving quickly, murmuring polite goodbyes. Eleanor stood by the door, her face a calm mask, but her eyes were furious. When the last guest was gone, she turned to Robert. The cleaning staff had already swept up the broken plate. The room was quiet again, but it was a terrible quiet. This ends now, Robert, Eleanor said, her voice crisp. You will call that woman and tell her she is fired. You will arrange for Emma to go to the Birchwood School. They have an excellent residential program for children with her challenges. It is the only sensible solution. Robert was staring out the massive window at the park below. He wasn't listening to her words. He was hearing his own. Asterisk, can you control her or not? He was seeing Emma's face. Did you hear me? Eleanor's voice cut through his thoughts. You tried your little experiment. It failed, spectacularly. Now you must do what is right for Emma, even if it is difficult. Robert turned from the window. He looked at his mother. Really looked at her. He saw the cold certainty, the belief that order and reputation were more important than a little girl's tears. He saw the life she had always planned for him, a life of perfect, empty control. You're wrong, he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. I beg your pardon? You are wrong, Robert repeated, stronger now, and you need to go, now. Eleanor stared at him, truly shocked. Robert, be reasonable. You are upset. I am finally seeing clearly, he interrupted. You told me to give her everything money could buy. I did. I gave her tutors and nannies and doctors, and this, he gestured at the cold, beautiful room, this museum. And she has never been more unhappy. She was happy today making a mess in the kitchen. She was happy learning signs for flour and eggs. She was happy with a woman who talks to her with her hands, not her wallet. She is a waitress, Eleanor spat. She is the only person who has ever truly seen my daughter. Robert's voice rose, not in anger at his mother, but in anger at himself. And I just sent her away. I became the problem, not Emma, not Denise. Me. He walked to the door and held it open. Leave, mother, and do not come back until you are ready to learn how to speak to Emma. Really speak to her. For a long moment, Eleanor was speechless. Then, with a stiff back and a final icy glare, she walked out. The elevator doors closed behind her. Robert was alone in the silent, glittering wreckage of the party. He walked to his office. On the floor, next to the trash can, was the sign language book he had thrown down in frustration days ago. He picked it up. He brushed off the dust. He sat at his desk. He opened the book to the basic phrases. His hands felt big and clumsy. He looked at the drawings of hand shapes. He tried to form them. It was hard. The muscles in his fingers didn't want to move that way. But he kept trying. He focused on one sentence. The most important sentence. He practiced it over and over. His signs were slow. They were ugly. They were not perfect. But he didn't stop. After 30 minutes, he stood up. He left the book open on the desk. He grabbed his coat and ran out of the penthouse. He didn't know where they were. He just knew they had to be nearby. He asked the doorman, "Did you see a young woman and a little girl leave? Which way?" The doorman pointed toward the park. Robert ran. He entered the park, his eyes scanning the paths. He saw couples walking, people with dogs, but no Denise, no Emma. His heart pounded. What if they were gone? What if he had lost them for good? He turned down a quieter path, away from the main road. And then he saw them, on a bench under a tree, about 50 yards away. Denise was sitting. Emma was next to her, leaning against her side. They had a small notebook open. Emma was drawing something, and Denise was watching, a small, tired smile on her face. The late afternoon sun made them look peaceful. They looked like a family. Robert stopped. He watched them for a moment. He saw Emma point to something in her drawing, and Denise nod, signing a comment. Emma smiled. He took a deep breath. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He felt more nervous than he had before any business deal, any board meeting. He lifted his hands. He looked at them. They were trembling. He made the first sign, then the second. He practiced the sentence one more time in the air, silently. Then he started walking toward the bench. He walked toward them, his steps slow on the gravel path. Denise saw him first. Her body went stiff. She moved slightly, putting herself more between Robert and Emma. Her face was careful, closed off. She was ready to defend, ready to argue. Robert stopped a few feet from the bench. He didn't speak. He looked at Emma, who had turned and was watching him with wide, unsure eyes. Then he did something he had never done before. He lowered himself, kneeling on the path so he was at her eye level. The gravel was hard under his knees, but he didn't seem to notice. He looked at his daughter. He looked nervous. He took a deep breath and raised his hands. They were not steady. The movements were slow. They were clumsy. He formed the signs with great concentration, his brow furrowed. Asterisk. I am sorry. I love you. The signs were not perfect. The sorry was a little off. The love was stiff. But the meaning was as clear as daylight. Emma's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes grew huge, filling with instant tears. She stared at her father's hands, then at his face, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Then she launched herself off the bench. She threw her small arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. Robert's own eyes squeezed shut. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tighter than he ever had. His shoulders shook. He was crying, silent tears streaking down his face into his daughter's hair. Denise watched, one hand over her own mouth. The anger and hurt she had felt began to melt away, replaced by a swelling of emotion she couldn't name. Robert held Emma for a long time. Then, over Emma's shoulder, he looked at Denise. His eyes were red but clear. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with tears. "For everything. For finding her, for bringing her here, for staying when I didn't deserve it." Emma pulled back, her face wet. She signed, "Asterisk, you signed." Robert nodded. He tried to sign yes, but it was messy. Emma laughed, a soundless puff of air, and corrected his hand. He smiled, a real, broken, hopeful smile. He stood up, holding Emma in his arms. He faced Denise. "I was wrong. What I said. It was the worst thing I have ever done. I was embarrassed. I was listening to the wrong people. I was trying to control the wrong things." He shifted Emma's weight. "I don't want to control her. I want to understand her. And I don't want you to leave." Denise looked at him, her own eyes glistening. "I don't know what my role is here anymore, Robert. After what you said, your role is family," he said, the word firm and sure. "If you want it, not an employee, not staff. You are Emma's family, and that makes you my family." He took another step. "Claire is fired. My mother, she won't interfere again. I told her she is not welcome unless she learns to respect you and communicate with Emma. This is my home, our home, and I want you in it." Emma, still in his arms, looked at Denise. She signed, "Asterisk, please stay." Denise looked from Emma's pleading face to Robert's sincere, weary one. The fear of the big city, the feeling of not belonging, it was all still there. But it was smaller now, outweighed by this. "Okay," Denise whispered. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll stay." The walk back to the penthouse was different. Emma walked between them, holding each of their hands, swinging a little. No one spoke much. The city lights were coming on, and the evening felt new. When they entered the penthouse, the remnants of the party were gone. It was just the quiet, clean space again, but it didn't feel as cold. Robert went straight to the phone in his office. He left the door open. Denise and Emma could hear his voice, calm and final. "Claire, Robert Carter, I'm calling to inform you your services will no longer be required. Effective immediately. A severance payment will be wired. Do not contact my family again." He hung up. He came out and found them in the kitchen. Denise was getting a glass of water. Emma was already in her pajamas. Robert looked at Denise, then at his own hands. "Will you teach me?" he asked. "Properly, I mean, not from a book." Denise smiled a small, true smile. "Yes, I will." "Can we start now?" he asked. "Just a little." They sat at the kitchen table. Emma scrambled into a chair between them, beaming. Denise started with the basics. The alphabet. A is a fist. B is a flat hand. Robert's large hands were awkward, but he tried. Emma would reach over and adjust his fingers, her tiny hands on his. He would get it wrong, and they would both laugh. The sound of their laughter together was a new sound in the quiet apartment. Later, Mrs. Lawson had left a simple dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables. They sat at the big glass table to eat. Robert looked at his plate. He concentrated. He formed a sign, looking to Denise for confirmation. She nodded. "Thank you," she said. He signed it again, looking at Emma. Asterisk. "Thank you." Emma signed back, "You're welcome." Then she signed, asterisk, "Chicken is good." Robert tried to copy that sign too. It was a mess. Emma giggled. As Denise watched them, a feeling settled over her. It wasn't that everything was fixed. It wasn't that life was suddenly perfect. But the wall that had been in the middle of the room, the cold distance, was gone. In its place was a shared effort, a fragile, hopeful trying. That night, when Denise went to her room, she didn't feel like a guest in a museum. She didn't feel like an employee in a strange land. The huge window still showed the towering, glittering city, but it didn't seem to loom over her anymore. It was just a view. Down the hall, she could hear Robert's voice, slow and patient, trying to read a bedtime story aloud to Emma, pausing to let Denise's signs from the doorway translate the words. She heard Emma's soft, contented sigh. For the first time, the enormous, silent penthouse didn't feel cold. It felt like it was waiting to be filled, not with things, but with this new, careful, hopeful sound. The change did not happen all at once. It happened in small, quiet ways. The next morning, Robert's assistant called at 8 o'clock. Robert answered, standing by the window in his pajamas. "Yes, I know the meeting is at 9, he said. "Please send my apologies. Reschedule it." "No, I don't want a conference call. I will be in the office after lunch." He paused, "because I am having breakfast with my daughter." He hung up and came to the table where Emma was eating toast and Denise was drinking tea. He sat down. "Good morning," he said, and then signed it. The sign was much better than the night before. Emma grinned, her mouth full. She signed back, asterisk, "Good morning." Family dinners became the rule, not the exception. Robert made it home by 6 o'clock almost every night. The meals were not fancy. Sometimes Denise cooked simple things she knew: pasta, soup, grilled cheese sandwiches. Sometimes Mrs. Lawson left a prepared meal. The important part was that they sat together. Robert would practice his new signs. How was your day? This is good. More milk? He made mistakes. Many mistakes. One night, he tried to sign, I am proud of you, and instead signed something very silly that meant, I am a pickle. Emma laughed so hard she almost fell out of her chair. Robert laughed too, a real loud laugh that echoed in the dining room. He didn't get frustrated. He just tried again. Denise began to change the penthouse. She asked Mrs. Lawson if they could buy some things. Soon, bright pillows appeared on the white sofas. A soft, colorful rug was placed in the playroom. Photos were framed and put on shelves. Pictures of Emma, a picture of Denise's mother, Clara, and even one of the three of them from a day in the park. The windows were still huge, but the light felt warmer now. One afternoon, the intercom buzzed. It was the doorman. Mr. Carter, your mother is here. Robert's face grew serious. He walked to the door. He opened it before the elevator arrived. When the doors opened, Eleanor Carter stepped out. She was as perfectly dressed as ever. Robert, she said, moving to step inside. He did not move aside. He stood in the doorway. Hello, Mother. Aren't you going to invite me in? That depends, Robert said. His voice was calm but firm. You are welcome to visit, but only if you are here to visit *us**. That means respecting Denise. It means making an effort to communicate with Emma. If you are here to criticize or give orders, then this is not your home, and you should leave. Eleanor's eyes widened. She was not used to being spoken to this way, especially by her son. She looked past him, into the apartment. She saw the new rug, the pillows, the photos. She saw Denise sitting on the floor with Emma, a puzzle spread out between them. Emma looked up, saw her grandmother, and moved closer to Denise. Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. I see the waitress has made herself quite at home. Her name is Denise, Robert said, his voice dropping. And she is the reason your granddaughter is smiling. So what is it going to be? Eleanor stared at him for a long moment. She looked at the cozy scene she was not a part of. Her expression did not soften. You are making a very large mistake, Robert. You are choosing sentiment over sense. She turned and pressed the elevator button. Do not call me when it falls apart. The elevator came. She stepped in and did not look back. Robert closed the door. He let out a long breath. He walked over and sat on the floor next to Emma and Denise. Emma crawled into his lap. What did Grandma say? Denise asked quietly. Nothing important, Robert said, signing the words as he spoke of them for Emma. She just decided today was not a good day for a visit. A few weeks later, Denise was thinking about her mother. She was thinking about how hard it had been for Clara, navigating a world where almost no one understood her. She thought about how lost Emma had been on that sidewalk. She thought about all the parents, like Robert, who loved their children, but didn't know how to reach them. That night at dinner, she gathered her courage. Robert, I have an idea. It might be a big idea. It might be a silly idea. Tell me, he said, putting down his fork. My mother, she was so isolated. Emma was lost. You felt lost trying to talk to her. What if there was a way to make it easier? What if we could teach sign language? Not just to deaf children, but to everyone. To hearing kids in schools, to parents, to teachers. If more people knew even a little, kids like Emma would never feel so alone on a sidewalk. Parents wouldn't feel so helpless. She spoke quickly, her hands moving with her words. Emma watched, not understanding all of it, but sensing Denise's passion. Robert listened. He didn't speak right away. He thought about the long, frustrating search for the right help. He thought about the clumsy, beautiful feeling of forming his first sign and seeing Emma's face light up. It's not a silly idea, he said finally. It's a brilliant idea. How do we start? I don't know anything about starting a charity, Denise said. But I do, Robert said. And for the first time in a long time, his business mind lit up with a purpose that felt completely right. We start a foundation. You will run it. We will fund it. We'll find the best people to help. We'll create programs for schools. The next days were a whirlwind. Robert made calls. He set up meetings. He brought in his most trusted lawyers and advisors. Denise sat in a big conference room in his office building, wearing a new, simple dress. She was nervous. These people talked about funding models and outreach initiatives. Then Robert said, "Denise, tell them why we are doing this." She looked at the serious faces around the table. She thought of her mother's hands telling stories. She thought of Emma's small fingers forming the sign for please. "It's about connection," Denise said, her voice clear. "It's about making sure no one has to be lonely inside their own mind, because the people around them don't know how to listen. It's about giving parents a key to their child's world. It's not complicated. It's just a language, and everyone can learn." The room was quiet. Then one of the lawyers nodded. "Okay, let's build it." They found a small, sunny office space not far from the penthouse. Denise interviewed teachers. She made sure to hire deaf instructors, people for whom sign language was a native tongue. She helped design the first simple curriculum for kindergarteners. The day came to sign the official papers to establish the foundation. They were in Robert's office. The lawyer pointed to the line for the foundation's name. Robert looked at Denise. "This was your idea. What should we call it?" Denise didn't hesitate. She had known the answer for weeks. "The Clara Miller Foundation," she said, "for my mother." Robert smiled. He handed her the pen. Denise signed her name on the line. Her hand did not shake. Emma, sitting on Robert's lap, watched. Then Emma pointed to the paper and signed, "Asterisk for Grandma?" "Yes," Denise signed, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Asterisk for Grandma." The lawyer gathered the papers. "Congratulations, it's official." Robert put his hand on Denise's shoulder. "The director of her own foundation. How does it feel?" Denise looked around the office, at Emma, at the papers that made it real. She was no longer just a waitress. She was someone who could build a bridge for others. She was her mother's daughter. "It feels right," she said. Months had passed. The Clara Miller Foundation was no longer just an idea on paper. It was a real place with a busy office, a small staff, and a growing waiting list of schools that wanted its programs. Denise stood at the front of a sunny room in a public library in Brooklyn. In front of her sat 10 parents and their young children. Some of the children were deaf. Some could hear. All of them were watching her hands. "Good morning," Denise signed and said aloud. "Thank you for coming. Today we are going to learn some signs you can use every day. Like more. All done. I love you." She saw the same look on many of the parents' faces, a look of love mixed with a deep want to understand. It was the same look she had seen on Robert's face in the park that day. She showed them the signs slowly. The parents tried to copy her, their movements clumsy. The children watched, some of them correcting their parents with small, quick hands. The room was full of a quiet, focused energy. No one was lonely in here. Later that day, Denise came home to the penthouse. It didn't feel like a penthouse anymore. It felt like home. She heard the door open and close, and the quick patter of feet. Emma rushed into the entryway, her backpack still on. Her face was alive with excitement. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, clothes she could play in. She didn't stop moving. Her hands flew. "Asterisk, Denise! Today at school, Sarah brought a frog. A real frog. It was green and it jumped. And we learned a new story about a bear, and I painted a picture. It is in my bag." The flood of information was so fast, so happy. Denise laughed, signing back, "one thing at a time. A frog?" Robert came in behind Emma, hanging up his coat. He was smiling. He watched Emma's hands, following most of the story. When Emma signed frog, he recognized it. "A frog, huh?" Robert said. He signed as he spoke, his signs much smoother now. "In the classroom?" Emma nodded vigorously. "In a box, but we could not touch it." "Probably a good idea," Robert signed back. He understood her. He asked a real question and understood the answer. It was a simple, everyday miracle. A few weeks later, they all went to Emma's school for a play. It was a small school for deaf children. The auditorium was alive with moving hands. The children on stage performed a story entirely in American Sign Language. There were no spoken words. The music was the rhythm of their movements and the expressions on their faces. Emma had a part. She played a tree that gave advice to a lost rabbit. She stood proudly, her hands shaping the story of the wind and the sun. Robert sat in the audience, his phone held up, recording every second. He didn't look at his phone screen. He watched Emma. His eyes were bright with pride. When the play ended, he clapped loudly, his hands high in the air, the way deaf audiences applaud with waving hands. The room was a sea of fluttering, joyful motion. On a warm Saturday afternoon, they went to Central Park. This time there was no crisis. They brought a big blanket and a picnic basket. They ate sandwiches and strawberries. Emma drew pictures of the birds she saw. After a while, Emma looked across the lawn. She tapped Denise's arm and pointed. 2 children from her school were playing with a ball. Emma signed *. "My friends, can I go?" "Yes." Denise signed *. "Stay where we can see you." Emma jumped up and ran across the grass. She tapped one friend on the shoulder. Immediately, their hands started moving, talking a mile a minute. They started a game of chase, their communication seamless and silent. Robert and Denise watched from the blanket. Robert finished his water. He was quiet for a moment. "I never thought I would see that," he said softly. "Her running to friends. Just being a kid." "She's happy," Denise said. Robert looked at Denise. "We are happy. Because of you. You changed everything. You saved her. You saved me." Denise shook her head. "You did the hard work, Robert. You chose to learn. You chose to be here. I just showed you the door." "You didn't just show me," Robert said. "You held it open, and you never let it slam shut, even when I tried to close it." He looked back at Emma, who was now showing her friends how to do a cartwheel. "I was so busy building a company, thinking that was my legacy. But this is my legacy. Her, this family, however untraditional it is." Denise smiled. "I think it's perfect." They talked then about practical things. The foundation needed to hire another instructor. Robert had a business trip to California, but would only be gone for 2 nights. They were simple plans, the plans of a family. Emma ran back, her face flushed. She signed, *ice cream. The man with the cart is there." Robert pretended to think very hard. I don't know. Did we have vegetables today?" Emma nodded very seriously. *carrots at lunch." "Well then," Robert said, standing up and brushing grass off his pants. "I suppose the rules say yes." He signed, "what flavor?" They packed up the blanket and walked to the ice cream cart. Emma got chocolate. Robert got vanilla. Denise got strawberry. They walked along the path, eating their ice cream as the sun began to dip lower in the sky. Emma walked between them, holding each of their hands for a moment, before skipping ahead. Then she ran back. She looked up at both of them, her face sticky and serious. She signed, first to Denise, then to her father, *I love you. Then she took their hands again, one in each of hers, and swung their arms as they walked. The city rose up around them, tall and mighty. But on the path, they were just three people. A father who had learned to listen with his eyes. A daughter who had found her voice. A woman who had discovered that her greatest gift was the language of her heart. They were not a mother and father and child. They were something else they had built together. Something stronger. As they walked out of the park toward home, Denise realized something. She didn't miss Chicago anymore. She didn't feel like a visitor in New York. The place wasn't important. The people walking beside her, their hands speaking a language of love and patience, that was home. "Do you know what next Tuesday is?" Robert asked one evening at dinner. He was signing as he spoke, his hands moving with a new, comfortable ease. Denise thought for a moment. She had been busy with foundation work. She shook her head. Emma looked back and forth between them. She loved when they talked like this, including her. "It will be 1 year," Robert said. 1 year since a very rainy day in Chicago. Denise's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. 1 year. It felt like a lifetime. It felt like yesterday. "I can't believe it," she said. "I think we should go back," Robert said. "To New York?" Emma signed, confused. "No," Robert said, smiling. "To Chicago? To the diner? We should see Lou. And—" he looked at Denise gently. "I think we should visit your mother." Denise felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I would like that," she said softly. "I would like that very much." So, the following Tuesday, they found themselves on a plane to Chicago. Emma was thrilled, signing questions about the diner, about Lou, about the city. Denise answered, her heart feeling full and light at the same time. They landed and took a taxi directly to the neighborhood. The streets looked the same. The buildings were familiar. But Denise felt like a different person looking at them. The taxi stopped in front of Lou's diner. The same bell jingled when Robert pushed the door open. The smell of coffee and bacon washed over Denise. For a second, she was 24 again, wearing an apron, feeling stuck. Then she felt Emma's small hand slip into hers. Lou was behind the counter, pouring coffee. He looked up. His eyes widened. A huge grin broke across his face. "Well, I'll be. Look what the cat dragged in." He came out from behind the counter, wiping his hands on his apron. He pulled Denise into a big bear hug. "Kid, look at you!" "Hi, Lou," Denise said, laughing. Lou let her go and looked at Robert and Emma. "And you must be the famous crew." He shook Robert's hand firmly. "And you," he said, bending down to Emma's level. "You got a lot bigger." Emma smiled shyly. She signed, *hello. Asterisk. "She says hello," Denise translated. "Well, hello back," Lou said. He looked around. "Your old booth is open. Go on. Sit. This is on the house. The whole shebang." They slid into the exact same booth where Denise had sat Emma down with a towel and hot chocolate. Lou brought menus, but Robert shook his head. "I think we know what we want." Lou nodded, understanding. He came back with 2 coffees and a large hot chocolate, piled high with whipped cream, just like before. He set it carefully in front of Emma. Emma's eyes lit up. She signed, *thank you. "She says thank you," Denise said. "I'm learning," Lou said, and he made a clumsy but recognizable sign for thank you back to Emma. She giggled. They ate their food. It tasted like memory and comfort. Lou came by to refill coffee. "So, you're a big shot now, huh? Running a foundation?" "I'm trying," Denise said. "Proud of you, kid. Your mom would be busting her buttons." After they finished, Robert looked around the diner. He looked at the window where Denise had stood. He looked at the door he had burst through in a panic. Then he looked at Emma, who was happily finishing her whipped cream. He leaned toward Emma. He began to sign, his hands telling a story. Asterisk, 1 year ago. It was raining, very cold. You were outside. He pointed to the window. Asterisk, you were lost. Denise saw you. She ran outside. She brought you here. She gave you hot chocolate. She called the police. She talked to you with her hands. She was your friend. Emma watched, completely captivated. She knew pieces of the story, but seeing her father tell it here, in this place, was different. It was real. When he finished, Emma was quiet. Then she signed. That's the best story. Lou, who had been watching from the counter, wiped his eyes with a corner of his apron. Got something in my eye, he grumbled. After saying long goodbyes and promising to visit again, they got back into the taxi. Denise gave the driver the address of the cemetery. The drive was quiet. Emma held Denise's hand, sensing the shift in mood. It was a peaceful, well-kept place with old trees. They walked along a path until Denise stopped in front of a simple gray headstone. It read, Clara Miller, beloved mother. Denise knelt on the grass. Emma stood close beside her. Robert hung back a few steps, giving them space. Denise reached out and touched the cool stone. She didn't speak. Her hands began to move. Asterisk, hi, Mom, it's me. Her signs were slow, private, full of love. Asterisk, I have so much to tell you. I live in New York now. I have a new family. This is Emma. She gestured to the little girl beside her. Asterisk, she is deaf, like you. She is smart and funny and brave. And this is Robert, her father. He is a good man. He learned to sign for her. She paused, gathering herself. Asterisk. I run a foundation, Mom. It's named for you, the Clara Miller Foundation. We teach sign language. We help kids and parents talk to each other. I am not a waitress anymore. I am helping people, the way you helped me. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. Asterisk, I miss you every day, but I carry you with me, in my hands. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for giving me this language. It saved me. It saved them. Emma watched Denise's moving hands. Then she carefully placed the bouquet of bright yellow sunflowers they had brought at the base of the headstone. She looked at the name carved in the stone. She signed, Asterisk, thank you, Grandma. Robert stepped forward then. He didn't kneel. He just looked at the headstone. In his heart, he said his own thank you. Asterisk. Thank you for your daughter. Thank you for teaching her. She gave me back my child. They stood together in the quiet for a few more minutes. Then, hand in hand, they walked back to the car. On the flight back to New York that evening, the cabin lights were dim. Emma, tired from the long day, curled up in her seat. She laid her head on Denise's shoulder and fell fast asleep. Robert was in the aisle seat. He had opened his laptop, but he wasn't working. He was just looking at the screen. Then he closed it. He didn't look out the window at the dark sky. He looked at Denise and Emma. He looked at his daughter, peaceful and safe. He looked at Denise, who was stroking Emma's hair, her own eyes closed. He was not thinking about the next business deal. He was not feeling the old, restless loneliness. He was feeling a deep, quiet contentment. He had everything he needed right here. Denise opened her eyes. She saw Robert watching them. She smiled, a tired, happy smile. Then she did something without thinking. She reached across Emma, who was sleeping between them. She took Robert's hand in her free one. Robert looked down at their joined hands. He laced his fingers through hers. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Denise looked out the airplane window. Her reflection looked back at her. A woman who was no longer scared, no longer lost. She was a woman who had crossed a rainy street and changed the course of her life. She was a woman who had used the language of her heart to build a bridge, a family, a future. The plane flew steadily through the night. In the quiet cabin, no words were needed. Their linked hands, resting together on the armrest, said everything that words never could. They spoke of trust, of family, of a connection built not on sounds, but on understanding. It was the most powerful language in the world.